"Excuse me, miss, but you're in the wrong place." The words, laced with sharp condescension, cut through the air before Lisa Carter even had a chance to fully process them. The woman in the stiff gray blazer barely hesitated before giving her a once-over, her eyes brimming with instant, unmistakable disdain. Lisa had stepped into Westbridge Industries with her heart hammering inside her chest, nerves and excitement battling for control. It was, after all, her first day. Or at least, that's what everyone in the office believed. In reality, she wasn't just some new hire trying to make an impression. She was the company's freshly appointed CEO, stepping into the role in a way no one saw coming, undercover as a low-level assistant, to witness firsthand how things truly operated when leadership wasn't looking. And, apparently, she didn't even make it past the lobby before running into her first major obstacle. Deborah Sullivan, department manager, gatekeeper of workplace culture. And, as Lisa was already realizing, someone who judged books by their covers without even bothering to read the first page. Lisa had chosen her outfit carefully, nothing flashy, nothing extravagant. Just a pair of simple slacks, a modest blouse, and minimal makeup. She wanted to blend in, to be treated the same as any other employee. But the way Deborah's eyes immediately narrowed told her all she needed to know. The woman had already sized her up and dismissed her as a less. "I was told to report to this department," Lisa replied evenly, making sure to keep her voice neutral, unreadable. Deborah let out a scoff. "And who, exactly, hired you?" Lisa had to fight back a smirk. "You did." But she didn't say that. Instead, she simply handed over a neatly folded copy of her employment letter. Deborah barely spared it a glance before tossing it right back. "Figures. HR keeps hiring just anyone these days." Then, as if she weren't already making herself perfectly clear, she turned toward a passing employee and said, loud enough for the entire room to hear, "Bet she's some diversity hire. Guess they had a quota to fill." Lisa felt something cold and sharp ignite in her chest. Workplace discrimination wasn't new to her. She had seen it before, in boardrooms and conference calls, hidden beneath polished words and corporate doublespeak. But here, this blatant, unchecked behavior on her very first day? She had planned to stay undercover for at least a few weeks, quietly gathering insight before implementing any changes. But after this, she wasn't sure she could wait that long. Taking a slow breath, she forced herself to stay calm. Think, Lisa. Be strategic. If she reacted too soon, she risked tipping Deborah off before she could fully expose just how deep the toxicity ran. And the more she observed that day, the more it became painfully clear that Deborah wasn't the only problem. It was infectious. The entire department seemed to mirror her behavior, especially toward employees of color. Lisa saw it with her own eyes. Charles, an older black employee, was always handed the worst assignments, while younger white employees were given easier, more prestigious tasks. Maria, the Latina receptionist, was constantly interrupted, her ideas brushed aside, as if she weren't even in the room. And Lisa herself? Nothing but menial tasks. "You can start by organizing the supply closet," Deborah had told her with a smirk, barely bothering to mask her amusement. Lisa clenched her jaw. This woman has no idea who she's messing with. Later that afternoon, she found herself in the break room when Charles walked in. He hesitated for a brief moment before offering her a polite nod. "How's your first day going?" Lisa let out a quiet sigh. "Interesting, to say the least." Charles gave her a knowing look, a ghost of a weary smile crossing his face. "Let me guess. Deborah's already put you in your place." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "She seems strong-willed." Charles chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "That's one way to put it." He stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, his voice dipping into something quieter. "She's been here for years. Upper management never does anything about her. They don't care." Lisa's heart ached at the resignation in his tone. "Not for long, Charles." "Not for long." The next morning, Lisa arrived early. She wanted to watch the department in action before Deborah even realized she was there. And what she saw only solidified her decision. At exactly 8:55 a.m., Charles arrived on time, Yet Deborah loudly scolded him in front of everyone, accusing him of being late. Meanwhile, when a younger white employee casually strolled in at 9:15, Deborah waved it off with a light-hearted, "Just try to be on time tomorrow, okay?" Then, during the morning meeting, Maria was speaking, presenting an idea, when Deborah cut her off mid-sentence. "Sweetheart, let the men handle the important stuff." Lisa clenched her fists under the table. Enough was enough. She had intended to remain undercover for a while longer, but that plan? Scrapped. There was no point in waiting. The rot in this department was far too deep, and she had seen all she needed to see. It was time for the big reveal. Later that afternoon, Lisa walked straight into Deborah's office, closing the door behind her. Deborah barely looked up. "You need something?" Lisa took a seat, folding her hands on the desk, her expression unreadable. "Actually, yes. I'd like to discuss some concerns I have about this department." Deborah scoffed, setting her pen down with an exaggerated sigh. "You've been here a day, and think you know anything?" Lisa smiled, but there was no warmth behind it. "Oh, I know plenty. I've seen exactly how you treat people here. And I've seen more than enough to make my decision." Deborah rolled her eyes. "Decision? What decision?" Lisa leaned forward slightly. "I'm Lisa Carter, the new CEO of Westbridge Industries." The color drained from Deborah's face in an instant. "What?" Lisa didn't flinch. "I came undercover to observe the culture of this company, and what I found was appalling." Deborah stammered, scrambling for an excuse. "I didn't mean—" Lisa cut her off with a sharp look. "Oh, you meant every word. And now I mean every word when I say, you're fired." Deborah gasped. "You can't do that." Lisa crossed her arms. "I think you'll find that I can." Right on cue, 2 security guards stepped into the doorway. "Escort her out." The 2 security guards appeared at the door, their presence solidifying the undeniable reality of the moment. Deborah's face twisted in rage, her eyes blazing with indignation. "This is unfair. You set me up," she spat, her voice rising, laced with fury and desperation. "Lisa?" She didn't flinch, didn't even bother responding. Instead, she calmly stepped to the side, reaching for the office door and pulling it open, revealing what Deborah had failed to notice. The entire department was watching. A thick, heavy silence hung in the air as employees stood frozen in place, eyes wide, mouths slightly parted. Some exchanged uneasy glances, shifting uncomfortably. Others whispered in hushed tones, their faces a mix of shock, curiosity, and, most notably, relief. Lisa turned her head slightly, locking eyes with Charles and Maria. A silent exchange. A nod. Change had finally come. As the security guards escorted Deborah out, the weight of the moment settled over the room like a storm that had finally broken. Still, no one spoke. The sound of Deborah's sharp heels against the polished floor echoed like a final death knell as she was led away. And then, a new kind of energy took hold. Employees murmured amongst themselves, the realization sinking in. Some looked nervous, as if wondering if Lisa's attention would turn to them next. Others, like Charles, Maria, and a few others who had long suffered under Deborah's rule, looked cautiously hopeful. Lisa didn't let the moment linger. She stepped forward, walking straight to the center of the floor. She didn't have to raise her voice. The weight of her presence alone commanded attention. And when she finally spoke, her tone was calm, yet firm. Steady. Unshakable. For far too long, this department has been controlled by toxic leadership. That ends today. A ripple of movement passed through the crowd. People shifted, listening closely. "I came here undercover," Lisa continued, her voice unwavering, "because I wanted to see for myself what was happening behind closed doors, what kind of culture had been allowed to thrive under weak leadership. Now that I have, I promise you this, things will change." The tension in the room shifted. Not gone, but different. More alert. More uncertain. Lisa let the silence stretch before turning toward Charles. "You," she said, eyes locking onto him. "How long have you worked here?" Charles hesitated, clearing his throat before answering. 23 years, ma'am. Lisa's expression darkened. And yet you're treated like a rookie. While others, employees who have barely been here 2 years, are given more respect, more opportunities, and better assignments than you. Charles gave a small, tired smile, one that held years of resignation. That's just the way it is. Lisa shook her head. Not anymore. She turned to Maria. And you? Every time you speak in a meeting, you're interrupted, ignored, or dismissed. Lisa's tone softened, just slightly. Tell me, Maria, do you feel like your voice is valued here? Maria's eyes widened slightly before dropping to the floor. No, ma'am. Lisa nodded. That changes today, too. Across the room, some employees shifted uneasily. A handful, Deborah's former favorites, exchanged wary glances. One of them, Greg, finally spoke up, his voice laced with skepticism. So what now? You gonna fire all of us? Lisa turned her gaze toward him, studying him carefully. That depends, she said evenly. If you are complicit in Deborah's behavior, you have two choices. Greg swallowed hard. One, you take accountability, correct your actions, and prove you belong here. Or two. Lisa's eyes sharpened. You leave. Silence. Greg hesitated, then gave a small, tight nod. Lisa exhaled. From this moment forward, this department is under new leadership. Her voice carried through the room, making sure every last person heard. Promotions will be based on merit, not favoritism. Everyone will have a voice. And if I catch even a whiff of discrimination. She glanced toward the door, where Deborah had disappeared. You'll be following her right out that door. For a second, just a second, the room remained silent. And then, Charles began to clap. Maria followed. Within moments, the tension broke as more and more employees joined in, their applause growing louder, shifting from uncertainty to genuine relief. Lisa let the moment settle. Then she smiled. Step one was complete. Over the next week, Lisa wasted no time rebuilding the department. Heavy checkmark, Charles was promoted to a senior leadership position, finally receiving the respect and authority he had earned after 2 decades of hard work. Heavy checkmark, Maria was given more responsibility, ensuring that her ideas, her voice, were heard and valued. Heavy checkmarked, a new hiring and training initiative was implemented, designed to prevent the toxic culture from creeping back in. Of course, not everyone was happy. Some of Deborah's former allies quit, refusing to adapt to the new system. Lisa? She didn't stop them. Westbridge Industries had no place for people like them. One afternoon, as Lisa sat in her new office, reviewing reports, a knock at the door caught her attention. Charles. Lisa looked up, offering a smile. Got a minute? He hesitated, then stepped inside, rubbing the back of his neck. I just wanted to say something, he started, voice quiet. I never thought I'd see this place change. He let out a short breath, shaking his head. Honestly, I was ready to retire just to escape it. But now? Now, for the first time in years, I actually look forward to coming to work. Lisa's heart swelled. That means a lot, Charles. And I meant what I said. This company is changing for the better. Charles nodded, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you. Really? Lisa stood, extending a hand. No, Charles. Thank you for sticking it out all these years. Now, let's build something worth staying for. As they shook hands, Lisa knew this was just the beginning. She had gone undercover to root out one toxic manager, but in the process, she had uncovered something much bigger. A culture of discrimination that had been ignored for years. By taking action, she hadn't just fired a bad boss. She had changed the future of an entire company. Her story serves as a reminder. Fire one person can make a difference. But real change? Backhand index pointing right that requires action.